Hey, so this is my teaching reflection for my partial video clips number two. The first question was your lesson plan culturally relevant? Yes, my lesson plan was culturally relevant because I allowed the students to associate with textures that they were familiar with, something that was on their level. One of the pictures that was in my hook and link was of something that looked like a Lego. We have Legos in my classroom that the kids play with all the time when they finish their projects early. So that's something that was fair playing ground for all of them. We've used slime in my classroom before. So one of the other pictures looked like slime. The kids were also giggling because we talked about how it kind of looked like boogers, and everybody is familiar with blowing their nose and getting that on them. Another thing that we talked about was fur. So one of the pictures looked like, like a bear or some kind of fur. Now, the majority of the students were familiar with that, but I did have one little boy who was not. So you could see an example of my differentiation there where I allowed him to touch a piece of like faux fur, just so that way he could make that connection of what it felt like to touch an animal. You're also going to see that my video was culturally relevant because based on my contextual factors sheet, I have a little boy in my class that is autistic and he does not like, partnering up with someone. So I allowed him to kind of be my teacher helper. He still got to experience those textures while he was handing things out to his friends. So he still was touching those textures and becoming familiar with them, but he doesn't really like to interact with other kids. So it kind of was that, moment for him. How am I going to continue to be culturally relevant in the future? So I plan on doing that by trying to level the playing field, looking ahead to see what kind of barriers and limitations might prevent my students from making connections. That way that they can better understand our lesson and incorporate it into their lives. The next question talked about positive learning environment. I believe that's one of my strengths. I feel like my kids love coming to art. They know that they're all loved, they're equally valued, they all have a voice in my class. There's no judgments. I'm not going to allow someone to laugh at or make fun of someone else. They're encouraged to treat each other with respect. They should never have a fear of failure or judgment. So if they don't know something, that's okay. We all learn from making mistakes and from each other. We celebrated a couple of different positive learning moments at 227. I already talked about that little boy that in video clip one, the little boy that didn't have exposure to the fur. So he was given the opportunity to do that. As you can see in that video, nobody said anything. Everybody was excited and wanted to touch them for themselves. At 5:03 in the video, you can see me giving a high five to a student that was successful at creating texture on his paper. At 5:50, I also saw a sweet little moment where two little girls had created texture on their own, and you could just see the look on their face, how surprised they were. I thought that was a really cool little success. The next question was, how did I deepen students' learning? I feel like I did this by allowing them to experiment and make mistakes. So even if the texture that they had created was not the one that they set out to create, they learned by doing. It gave them experience with something they've never done before. A lot of these kids, number one, don't paint much at home, and if they do paint, they are probably not allowed to scrape things through the paint and just kind of go crazy. And so that's one of the things about being a kid, is just getting your hands in there, making a mess, and learning by doing. So now those kids are going to associate, when you drag something through the paint, it's going to move that paint around and it is going to create a texture. And they can experiment and kind of hone in on that skill more as we continue throughout this lesson. We're going to build on that the next time I see them. My goal for the last class was to make my lesson more student-centered, and I feel like I was really successful at that this week. So from the word go, kind of, the kids were engaged and they were a part of that lesson. We played a game. They had a lot of fun with that. We went to our seats and we experimented, and it was really a student-centered lesson. So I am proud of that. My new goal, and something that I definitely feel like I have room for improvement on, is to take my questioning to the next level. I think I need some higher level questioning for them to apply what they've learned. So instead of just that surface level, lower level questioning, I need to have them tell me the real life application, how they can apply what they've learned about texture and how that's going to transfer and change their artwork to take it to the next level. So that's my plan, is to try and get the kids to identify how whatever we're learning is going to take their artwork to the next level and apply it. Thank you so much for your time.